Good afternoon and welcome to this January 20th, 2023 special meeting of the San Francisco Ethics Commission. Our minutes will reflect that this hybrid meeting is being held pursuant to the 45th supplement to the mayoral proclamation declaring the existence of a local emergency dated February 25th, 2020, and is being held subject to the conditions of that proclamation. Today's meeting is being live cablecast on SF Gov TV2 and streamlined online on sfgovtv.org/ethicslive. For public comment, members of the public who may attend in person or may participate by phone or the WebEx platform, as explained in our agenda document. Moderator, can you please explain how the remote public comment will be handled today?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public comment will be available on each item on this agenda. Each member of the public will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. For those attending in person, opportunities to speak during the public comment period will be made available here in room 416, City Hall. For those attending remotely, public comment period can also be provided via phone call by calling 1-415-655-0001. Again, the phone number is 1-415-655-0001. Access code is 2486-188-0913. Again, the access code is 2486-188-0913, followed by the pound sign. Then press pound again to join as an attendee. For callers, you will hear a beep when you are connected to the meeting. You will automatically be muted and in listening mode only. When your item of interest comes up, dial *3 to raise your hand and to be added to the public comment line. You will then hear, "You have raised your hand to ask a question. Please wait until the host calls on you." The line will be silent as you wait your turn to speak. Ensure that you're in a quiet location. Before you speak, mute the sound of any equipment around you, including television, radio, or computer. It is especially important that you mute your computer if you are watching via the web link to prevent feedback and echo when you speak. When the system message says, "You have been unmuted, this is your turn to speak," you will hear staff say, "Welcome, caller." We encourage you to state your name clearly. As soon as you begin speaking, you will have 3 minutes to provide your public comment, 6 minutes if you're online with an interpreter. You will hear a bell go off when you have 30 seconds remaining. If you change your mind and wish to withdraw yourself from public comment line, press *3 again. You will hear the system say, "You have lowered your hand." Once your 3 minutes has expired, staff will thank you and mute you. You will hear your line has been muted. Attendees who wish to speak during other public comment periods may stay on the line and listen for the next public comment opportunity, and should raise their hands to enter the public comment line by pressing *3 when their next item of interest comes up. Public comment may also be submitted in writing and will be shared with the Commission after this meeting has concluded and will be included as part of the official meeting file. Written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Once again, written comments should be sent to ethics.commission@sfgov.org. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Moderator. I now call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioners, please verbally indicate your presence by saying "here" after your name is called. Commissioner Bush?
Here.
Commissioner Flores-Fang?
Here.
Commissioner Finlev?
Here.
Chair Lee?
Here.
Commissioner Romano?
Here.
Chair Lee, with 5 members present and accounted for, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And now I call agenda item number 2, which is public comment on matters not appearing on the agenda. Moderator, can you please check and see if anyone wishes to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. For remote participants, if you joined the meeting early to listen to the proceedings, now is the time to get in line to speak. Members of the public who are already online and wish to provide public comment on matters not appearing on the agenda under item 2 should now dial *3 or raise your hand in WebEx, if you have not already done so, to be added to the public comment line. Once you are in the queue and standing by, the system will prompt you when it's your turn to speak. We also ask that you please address your comments to the Commission as a whole and not to individual members. Please stand by as we check for callers in the queue. Madam Chair, there's no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Public comment for item number 2 is now closed. And now call agenda item number 3, which is the presentation, public hearing, and possible action on Ethics Commission's budget priorities for the fiscal year 2023-24 and fiscal year 24 to 25. This is a pretty sobering budget proposal before us. If we were to follow the mayor's request for automatic budget cuts for fiscal year 23, 24, and 24, 25, along with several of the staff positions that will be sunsetted after the 3-year funding is sunsetted, we are looking at about a 32% staff cut for the next 2 years. So before we have any comments, I'd like to call on our Director Feigenville to give us the summary of the presentation. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Lee. Good afternoon, Commissioners. This item is to discuss the Commission's budget priorities for the upcoming 2 fiscal years, which are FY24 and FY25. Fiscal year 24 is for a period starting from July 1st of 2023 this year through June 30th of 2024. And fiscal year 25 starts from July 1st of 2024 next year through June 30th of 2025. Next slide, please. So every year during this period, city departments go through their annual budgeting exercise. Departments are required to submit their budget proposal to the mayor's office by February 21st each year. That is the deadline. And as a part of the process, they're required to conduct 2 public hearings where public can provide input in the process. The first meeting is to receive input on the department's budget priorities before a budget proposal is finalized. And the second hearing is for discussions on the budget proposal before it's submitted to the mayor's office. So this meeting is our first hearing to receive input on budget priorities. And just to give a brief outline on the process, once we submit the budget proposal to the mayor's office, the mayor's budget office would then review all of the proposals, reach out to departments if they have questions, and then put together a proposal on behalf of the mayor by June 1st, which will be submitted to the board, which then will be reviewed by the board and then sent back to the mayor by August 1st for her signature. So that's the cycle of the budgeting process. Next slide, please. So before I go into the budget priorities for the Commission, I wanted to provide some information regarding the instructions that we have received from the Mayor's Office for city departments. The city is expecting a deficit of about $722 million for the 2 fiscal years, upcoming 2 fiscal years. And in order to address that, the mayor has asked city departments to propose cuts of about 5% in the first year, which is FY24, and an additional 3%, adding up to 8% in the second year for FY25. And the way to achieve this, per the instructions, is to prioritize filling or reclassifying positions to focus on the core functions of the department and the mayor's priorities, and to use vacancies to achieve the target cuts. We've also been told that we should be prepared in case the financial outlook worsens during the year. So there could be additional cuts if needed. Moving on to priorities that the mayor has identified for the city. Here are the priorities. Recovery of local economy, improving public safety, reducing homelessness and transforming mental health services, accountability and equity in services and spending. So these are the focus areas that the mayor has identified for the departments to consider when putting together their proposals. So just to briefly talk about Commission's priorities. These are our ongoing priorities. Strong laws that are well implemented with timely and effective oversight, heightened awareness of our laws to improve compliance and to foster public engagement through tools and information and resources and outreach and public disclosure. And also focus on continuous improvement. And this is something that we do on an ongoing basis, looking at our programs and areas to see how can we improve the manner in which we conduct our core functions. And these will continue to be our priorities. Moving on to a funding snapshot. So this table gives you the current allocations for the fiscal years that we're discussing here. So for current year, which is fiscal year 23, the approved budget, which is the operating budget, is $7.1 million. For the upcoming two fiscal years, fiscal year 24 and 25, the starting point for our assessment is the baseline budget. So currently we have $6.9 million for FY24 and $5.4 million for fiscal year 25. So you'll notice that there's reduction in the funding, and that's because there are some positions for which funding will be expiring in these 2 years. So in our current fiscal year, we have a staff size of 34. And in FY24, 2 positions will be expiring. So we'll have at least the baseline number of positions will be 32. And then we were expecting an additional 8 positions to expire in the following fiscal year. So in total, by the time we're in FY25, funding for 10 positions in total would have expired in the current setting. Now, one additional thing I wanted to mention is that departments are also expected to meet certain attrition savings target. So essentially, the city expects that there may be normal staffing changes where staff may move to other departments or leave the city or retire, and that is sort of baked into the numbers that are allocated for departments. So the city departments are expected to manage our staffing level and hiring to ensure that a certain amount of attrition savings can be achieved. In the past, we've had vacancies, so we have been able to achieve them. In the upcoming 2 fiscal years, we are expected to achieve an attrition savings target of approximately 2.4 FTEs, which is full-time equivalent positions. So this will also be something to consider when we look at the overall staffing levels and impact on the cuts. Another area regarding funding for our department is the election campaign fund. So this is the fund allocated to provide partial public financing for candidates for the mayor and the board of supervisors. And we administer that program and the funding as well. The fund currently has a balance of $3.5 million, and it is capped at $7 million. There's an allocation planned for about $446,000 in fiscal years 24 and 25. Typically, we provide an estimate or projections for upcoming elections to the mayor's budget office, and then they use that information to make allocations. So during this budgeting process, there may be further discussions to see if any additional allocations are needed to this fund. Moving on to how our budget is distributed. So you'll see 2 pie charts here. The first pie chart shows the distribution by the type of spending. So roughly 86% of our budget is allocated to staff, salary, and benefits. And then we have an allocation of 6% for professional services and equipment and supplies. So these are essentially things like software tools that our staff uses, technology, laptops, maintenance and procurement of systems for electronic disclosures. We also have other expenses related to managing and maintaining our office. Separately, there's also an allocation for services from other departments, roughly accounts for 8%. So this is to departments such as Department of Technology. They too provide services regarding, for office tools, telecommunications, internet, etc. Also, to support these SF Cup TV, cable casting for these meetings. We also have a work order with the HR, Human Resources, to help us with our hiring and staff-related needs, and a work order with the Controller's Office. They provide us with accounting support. A work order with the Contract Administration. We're currently working on establishing a contract with external auditors to be able to conduct campaign audits. So that's the assistance through the processes provided by the Contract Administration team. And of course, real estate for our office. So those are the types of expenses in that category. If you look at our staffing distribution, you'll see that about 17% of our staffing is allocated to executive and administrative type work. About 12% for audits division, the same for the electronic disclosure and data analysis division, that's our technology team. 12% for our ethics at work team. This is a brand new team that we have established to provide training and outreach to city departments. We also have about 25% allocated for enforcement team, 18% for the engagement compliance team, and 6% to policy. So that's our current distribution of staffing. This org chart gives you an idea of all of the positions in our department by different divisions. We've also identified current vacancies as well as positions for which funding will expire in the upcoming fiscal years. So we have a staff size of 34, about 8 vacancies right now, excluding the ED, and 2 positions expiring, funding expiring in FY23, and 8 for which funding will expire in FY24. So moving on to our departmental priorities. In order for us to maintain our current level of services and capacity, which is a FY23 level of services and capacity, it is essential to continue all of the funding for the positions that we have identified as expiring in the 2 fiscal years. And I'll go over more details for these positions in the upcoming slides. But that's going to be a key priority for us to retain those positions. So just talking through some of the specific positions and areas where funding will be needed. The next slide talks about one of the positions in our electronic disclosure and data analysis division. Again, this is our technology division. So we have a 1043 senior IS engineer position for which funding will expire at the end of this June. This position is the only position that is of the engineering type. And currently is performing a lot of different functions within the team. We're asking to retain this position as an ongoing PCS position. So essentially asking for permanent funding for this position. This position in the past has been has been renewed for limited terms because at that time we were still assessing the needs of our department. But now it's clear that this is ongoing work that is needed. Which is why we're asking for permanent funding. Just to give you an idea of the type of duties performed by this role, the campaign finance dashboards for elections are built and maintained by this particular role. And these are very essential tools for the public and the media. They often rely on the data that we provide for their reporting. Also, open data resources, our ability to publish data out to the public through the city's open data platform, is through this position. We have, several different methods in which we make information available to the public through our website. One of them is through the city's open data platform in the form of data sets. So there's a lot of integration between our systems and the city's open data system that requires management and ongoing support. Also, the online complaint form. This is the tool that public uses to report complaints through our website. We're building out a new case management system for the enforcement team. So our ability to maintain and develop these systems will be impacted. We have several electronic filing processes and systems that we have developed and maintained. Our ability to continue to maintain them and to probably build out new systems if there are new disclosure requirements, that will also be impacted if this role is not funded. And the sfethics.org website, currently we've done some redesign to the website, but there's still continued work needed in order to be able to meet the city's web accessibility standards. So there's ongoing work there that this role will be helping us perform. And the city's our contract disclosure system for administration of contractor contribution ban. So again, a different disclosure process that requires a lot of maintenance. So gives you an idea of the types of different systems and processes that this role will be helping us support, which is why we're asking for ongoing funding for this position. Moving on to some needs in the engagement and compliance division. So this is the division that provides compliance guidance, filing support, training, outreach to city officers, employees, candidates, committees, and various other filers. We had, a year ago, we had requested funding for a new client support specialist position when we were working on launching the e-filing system to departmental filers. And this role has played an integral role in that launch, and also to provide continued support for those filers. So we're talking about more than 5,000 filers across city departments and filing officers who assist those filers. This work requires a lot of technical assistance and support. They reach out to us for compliance guidance and filing assistance. So this role has played a key role in really streamlining a lot of that work and providing prompt assistance to filers. As you know, this is an ongoing need because there's annual filing requirements. Also, throughout the year, filers can change positions. You know, new filers get appointed, or they may leave their position. So there's ongoing work throughout the year as well to assist them. So it's a very critical role, and the funding for this position will expire at the end of this June. So we're asking for ongoing PCS funding, permanent funding for this position as well. And related to the same need, we currently have another 1840 junior management assistant position in our org chart. This became vacant when one of our staff members retired a year ago. At that time, the position was designated as Fines Collections Officer. We had since then indicated to reclassify or repurpose this position as a finance and administration, a finance and operations coordinator, because there was a need for us to be able to handle a lot of our administrative work department-wide. But we were not able to get to filling this position. But now with our understanding of increased need for compliance assistance and filer support, we're asking to repurpose this position as a client support specialist position to again work with the other role and assist and provide more guidance and support to our filers across different program areas, not just the Form 700 area, but also to our lobbyists and campaign committees and candidates. So this does not have a funding impact. This is more of an informational update that we're going to be using an existing position and repurposing it for this need. Now, the administrative support need still exists, but we're just prioritizing the need to support filers at this point. So there's no budget impact on this, but it's just a change that we wanted to call out at the same time. And in the same division, engagement and compliance, one other request is for reclassification. So we currently have an 1844 engagement and compliance officer position. This position provides direct support and guidance and assistance to candidates and campaign committees. Basically administers the campaign finance program, which is a complex program area. Recently, we had a staff attrition in this position, so we are asking to reclassify, basically upgrade this position to a higher classification, which is 1823. This work demands a lot more complex analysis and thinking and independent judgment, and we feel that the higher classification will allow us to assign that type of work to this role. So this is a position that's fully funded, but we are asking for funding to upgrade the position. Moving on to a different division, this is the Ethics at Work program. This is a brand new team that we have built out. The funding for this position was provided starting October 1st of 2021. So it's a little over a year that we've had funding. At that time, we wanted to build out this team to address a lot of the concerns regarding corruption. We saw the need to provide greater support and resources for city departments. So what they're working on now is building out training and materials that can be distributed to departments, and also to have the bandwidth to provide workshops and other trainings for departments. Something that we haven't had the capacity to do, but now the team is fully ready and built out, and they've been actively working on various deliverables. This whole team, all of the positions in this team, their funding will expire at the end of June next year. So we're asking to convert these positions to permanent positions, because we have seen the work and we see that this is going to be an ongoing need to be able to provide this type of support. So we're asking for ongoing funding for these positions. Moving on to Enforcement Division, we were allocated 3 senior investigator positions at the same time as when the funding for the Ethics at Work program was provided, which is October 1st of 2021. These positions have been very critical in really addressing the backlog on cases to reduce case resolution times and increase the number and proportion of severity of cases that are investigated. So we're asking for these positions to be ongoing permanent positions, and these positions' fundings expire on June 30th of next year. So the funding request will be for starting from FY25. We also have a position focused on program performance and reporting. So the BLA audit in 2020, one of the items that they had recommended was our ability to do better evaluation on how we're performing, identifying metrics for our performance, and to be able to report on them. So we had identified this role to help cross-functionally to do greater data-driven analysis and providing insights for the department to improve our work. It was a 3-year position. We were not able to fill it because of hiring backlog. So this position will expire at the end of next June 2024. So we're asking to continue funding for this position as a 3-year PEX. Since we haven't filled it yet, we wanted to, again, we are making it a limited term so that we can assess the work and decide how to continue the work beyond that time frame. This will be critical for us to be able to really have metrics that can provide valuable insights in how we perform our work, and also reporting that out to the public. Moving on to requests that are non-position related. So these are essentially requests for technology, professional services, and also services such as translation services. We have a lot of materials on our website that need to be translated to different languages, and we've not had a lot of bandwidth and resources for that. So this request will include services such as that. We're also accounting for cost increases for services related to software or electronic disclosure charges, etc. Typically, the baseline funding that we have to support these type of services is not sufficient to meet our needs. Every year we've been asking for funding, and they get allocated for that year, for just 1 year, which is why each year we've had to come back and ask for additional funds to account for these services. So this again, ideally we would want these to be ongoing fundings, but then sometimes they get allocated as one-time funding, and then we have to go back and ask for more, which is what we're doing this time. So in summary, so if we look at what we need to maintain our current levels of services and our current capacity, we're asking for about $474,000 in FY24. That's an increase of about 6.8% from current allocation for that fiscal year. And then we're talking about $2 million for FY25, which is about 37% more than what we have been allocated right now. We're continuing to evaluate our needs. We're going to see if there's anything else that may need to be addressed and bring that forward in our next meeting. But at this point, these are all the areas that we've identified for a budget proposal. Now, shifting to the target cuts. So as I mentioned, the mayor's office has asked departments to cut 5% in the first year and then up to 8% in the second year. And what this means for us is in the first year, it's about $339,000. And in the second year, it's about $543,000. Now, this will be in addition to the 10 positions that we've identified as expiring during the course of these 2 years. Given that the instructions, budget instructions mentioned that we should try to achieve these cuts, but through vacancies, I wanted to give you a snapshot of what our current vacancies look like. So we have 8 positions, 3 of them in the engagement and compliance area. The 1824 engagement and compliance manager, the 1844 engagement and compliance officer, and the 1840 junior management assistant, which we're looking to repurpose within the team. We're going to prioritize the engagement compliance manager position and the junior management assistant for our hiring because we want to be able to have the capacity to provide filer support during this, especially since annual filing season for Form 700 is coming up. The 1844 engagement and compliance officer position is what we've identified for upgrading. So we won't be able to fill that position until a decision is made on that request. Aside from that, we have 2 positions in the enforcement team, a senior investigator position and an 1822 investigator position. The senior investigator positions funding will expire at the end of next June. We also have a few administrative positions that are vacant, the program performance and reporting analyst position, as well as the executive secretary position. Separately, we also have the 1824 policy manager position also vacant. We have been able to make a lot of progress on hiring, but we've also had staff attrition, so it's been, that's the main reason why we have most of these vacancies. Moving on to how we will need to achieve the cuts. So these are the positions that will be impacted if we have to make the 5% cut and the 8% cut. So the first one is the 1844 engagement and position in the engagement and compliance team, which is the engagement and compliance officer position. This role is designed to provide support and assistance to candidates and committees. So if this position needs to be vacant for a period of 2 years, that means we won't be able to provide the level of support needed for the upcoming 2024 election. This work is currently absorbed within the team, and it will not be sustainable. So it's very important that we are able to fill this role, upgrade this role, and fill this role as quickly as possible. The other position identified is the executive secretary position. As you may recall, this is a position that got added this fiscal year, effective October 1st of 2022. And the commission had identified that as a priority as well. Currently, a lot of our commission support operations and departmental operations have been absorbed across staff positions. And what that means is then some of their programmatic work would not be addressed because they are kind of pulled in to do other functions. It's important for us to fill this role, to centralize a lot of that work. So this will certainly have an impact on our operations. And then the 1822 investigator position. This will have impact on the enforcement team's ability to perform detailed investigations, reduce case times, and also increase the types of cases that they investigate. So overall, the impact will be quite severe. Now, you'll notice that I haven't mentioned a few other positions that were identified as vacant in the previous slide. That's because funding for those positions expire, a couple of them expire by June of 2024, which means that we will have to go, find cuts using other positions, which is why, we narrowed down on these positions. So lastly, just to summarize, this just gives you a summary of all the different areas that I talked about. So in FY24, we're talking about a reduction of about 25% of our enforcement team's capacity. And I talked about impact on various systems, including the case management system, our ability to develop and maintain the online complaint form, our campaign finance dashboards, the impact on the campaign finance program itself. If we don't fill that position, we won't be able to provide support to filers. And the Form 700 program will also be impacted if we're not able to fill or continue the client support services position. And various impact to all of the systems that are essential to allow and provide public disclosure. So all of these data systems, our ability to maintain them will be impacted. In FY25, the Ethics at Work program, which is important work that we're doing right now, that will be halted. The impact on the enforcement team would be up to 50%, and the campaign dashboards for the 2024 election, we will not be able to create them and provide that to the public. So it's yes, the impact is going to be quite severe if we have to take the mayor's cuts and also the impact due to positions that are expiring. So we'll, again, continue to evaluate to see if there are any other budget priorities that come up in the upcoming weeks before the next presentation. But that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Director Feigendale. Any questions, comments from fellow commissioners? Commissioner Finn?
I have some questions. I have a couple questions. Just from a mechanical point, I don't know that much about how the budget works. Understand that kind of the two things happening that affect us right now. The budget is being cut, but also positions are expiring. So as I understand it, the chart you have on page 6, the number of positions, that's just based on expiring positions, right? And
That's right.
I think the footnote means the staff is going to be less than that because we also have to meet the new budget, right?
So there are three things. One, we have several positions that are expiring. 2, the mayor's target cuts. 3, attrition savings, which is a standard process, right? That tends to be a smaller amount, but all of the 3 together can have quite a severe impact on our capacity.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that. I want to ask about attrition. So right now, is the commission able to meet the balanced budget based purely on the expiring positions and attrition, or would there be cuts on currently filled positions?
We do not anticipate that. And also the mayor's, I believe their instructions basically says that we should be looking at vacancies. So what we're hoping is that if we can provide clear justifications and help them see the impact, that that we wouldn't need to take cuts, that would be ideal.
Right, but it sounds like even worst case scenario, if there's no additional funding approved, you wouldn't be cutting filled positions, right? You'd be meeting the balanced budget based on attrition and unfilled positions.
That is our understanding, yes.
And then just, sorry, last question, and this is more because I don't know how the budget process works, but when you submit your request, do you prioritize it by saying, we'd like X, but if we only get half of X, here's where we'd put it? Or does the mayor's office basically figure out how to prioritize if they give you a lesser amount than what you request?
We try to provide them as much information and data as possible to justify our asks. Sometimes in the past, priors, they have reached out to us to ask for priorities. In the last year, though, that did not happen. So I don't know what process will come up this time. So it's a mix.
Got it. Great. Well, thank you. Yeah, like the chair said, these are sobering cuts. But thank you very much for the presentation and for answering those questions.
And maybe before we have further questions for the director, if you can kindly walk us through the budget review and approval process from submitting to the mayor's office, as well as other opportunities for the public to comment when the Board of Supervisors get that budget?
Yes, so after this public hearing, we'll receive feedback and then put together a proposed budget for the February 10th meeting. The budget submission deadline is February 21st, so we will be submitting our request into the system and a memo to the mayor's budget office. Typically, once they receive all of the requests, the mayor's budget analyst assigned to a department would reach out to us to clarify questions or discuss priorities. And then typically we learn about what has been allocated only the day before the June, by end of May, essentially. And we will also have an opportunity to present to the board with the budget that's been allocated for us by the mayor, and there may be questions or clarifications at that point, from the board. And then, we'll learn about what has been approved. But other than, I think, along the way, if there are updates, we'll definitely provide that information through our commission meetings. But overall, that outlines the process.
Sorry, quick follow-up. When you said that then there's a presentation to the Board of Supervisors?
To the committee, the budget committee.
Oh, the budget committee.
Yes,
And
sorry.
that happened, when does that happen?
Typically, it happens in June, would be around roughly second week of June.
Okay.
Several departments will be presenting, so it depends on the date that they assign to our department. Yeah.
And I do have one follow-up question. I'm not sure if the chair has other ways to direct the conversation. I echo everything that everybody said. I do think, these are tough cuts. It's difficult to to navigate given the needs that we have and the money that's being allocated. And I'm wondering if if the team is functioning now in a way that wouldn't make sure that we get done everything we need to get done, even if there are budget cuts that aren't in our favor. Is that something, are we reorganizing our agenda in the meantime? Because I know, there's a lot of positions that affect the campaign finance dashboard and a lot of other data that needs to be collected. And so are we getting ahead of that?
So at the moment, we are working on the transition plan, but we'll soon definitely be focusing on key priorities. So yes, I think if we get feedback or understanding of what is expected of departments, I think we will have to plan ahead, as you mentioned, to prioritize our work. Yeah. Thank you.
Commissioner Bush?
Thank you. I can just speak in generalities, since I don't know the specifics of this budget year. But as a general rule, the mayor's budget and what departments respond to does not include savings from the courts. It's considered in the past to be poor form for the mayor to cut on the court's budget. And so that's left to the Board of Supervisors. And when they do that, it's a number of millions of dollars, which they then reallocate to the projects that they find are most important to their constituents or to them. And that can be an allocation back for ethics. So I would just keep that in mind as one point. Secondly, the mayor's suggestion is that we also look at revenue, not just cuts. And as I looked at some of the issues of revenue, there seemed to be areas that we could explore with some happy results. For example, the fine for filing your Form 700 late is $10 a day to a maximum of $100. $100 fine for not filing after a year or something like that is certainly a lot less than a parking ticket. And so you can understand why the public thinks that we treat our own officials more gently than we treat the general public that's involved in trying to voice their concerns. So I would suggest that we consider seeing if there are members of the commission who would be willing to serve as an ex officio advisory panel on places where we can increase revenues for the Ethics Commission. And that would include late fees and fines, as well as potentially a surcharge, for example, for lobbyists, so that we could analyze whether or not the lobbyist reports are being done completely and accurately. All of those things are subject in part to review by the FPPC, but they have indicated in the past that they are willing to accept what local governments decide to do on that. Another issue is that we have a variety of vacancies that are extended over a period of months beyond the normal vacancies. So that when Harvey Rose did his analysis 2 years ago, he found that the Ethics Commission positions were staying vacant for a half year or longer compared to other city departments. And we might want to take a look at that, why that is, and what can be done about it. One of the things that can be done is to contract out positions so that it's not the onerous duty to identify positions to be filled with the assistance of local departments. For example, the controller has indicated a willingness to make staff available on a contract basis to do audits. And as you know, we're very far behind in auditing filings with ethics. So that's one place. Another is the FPPC itself, which has a system for posting campaign literature for a review of whether or not there are any violations. And that's a constant irritant to people involved in the political process, that people play fast and loose with their campaign literature and know if it is ever done. So I think that taking a look at a relationship with the FPPC, which, by the way, has also adopted a policy now that they will act to enforce local ethics laws as well as state laws if that's what we choose to go. So in other words, what I'm trying to suggest is if we cast our eyes around and look at where there's some funding available or whether there's resources that can be put to use, we might be able to come closer to meeting our obligation to the San Francisco voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bush. I think these are great long-term solutions. I would like to have us look into the revenue increase option. Number one, who has the authority? Can we arbitrarily increase the penalty? And more importantly, the very function of this commission through its enforcement, ethics at work, and engagement is to make sure that the public, whether they're lobbyists, government officials, do not fall short of the responsibility. Thereby, they would face the penalty. So I think that on the long term, we definitely would like to see no penalties, which means everybody will be in compliance with their reporting and activities. But nevertheless, if Director, if you can take a look at who has the authority to raise the penalties from say $100 to 200, but those are still peanuts compared to what we're facing with right now. My question is, even though the mayor has issued the directive, but this commission is very unique, 85% or higher of our budget, because we're such a small department, goes to personnel. So compared to, other larger departments who could really absorb the cuts through, other administrative, operational expenses, we really cannot afford this proposed cut, automatic cut, on top of the fact that within the last couple of years, we've been asked to do a lot more through the past few months where we had these public hearings in terms of enforcement and other findings. We're going to get a lot more of those cases coming before us. So I would suggest that, like before, last year, we did not submit a budget with the proposed cuts, with the very firm statement that, unlike others, we really could not absorb the cut. And ultimately, we were able to make the case to have an additional staffing to carry the work. It is very unfortunate that it's been very, very slow moving, filling these space. I mean, Ethics at Work's been, approved for 2 years, and we're just starting to get it off the ground. So I think other than continue to work with DHR, I really don't know how we can fill these positions, as soon as we need them. But that's another conversation for another day with DHR. But colleagues, I would suggest that because of the unique position that we are in, just like previously, we did submit a budget statement along with our budget proposal to the mayor's office, just to remind them the unique circumstances that we have, so that when they look at the budget that we have, it's not just an automatic across-the-board cut. They will realize that, a 3% cut means, a staff member, so that we would issue a budget statement along with our budget. I think we've done that before, and if you can have the staff start to work on that before our February 10th meeting, that would be very, very helpful. In terms of, meeting the priority, I think that the function of this commission does meet the top priority that the mayor has set up, because after the pandemic, there was a lot of city support programs for small business, homeowners, and what have you, for COVID recovery. And since the mayor's top 4 budget priorities, I would say we definitely meet 1 and 4. We help with this local economy because there would be questions and there would be concerns whether these support projects or support process is done out in a fair, clean, ethical manner. So by continuing ethics work in enforcement, education, outreach, we are making sure that the city's precious dollars are well spent. So I think we can make a very forceful push that we do meet the local economy revival priority. And of course, the number 4, the government work. So I think that we can really make a strong case to meet the mayor's budget priorities as well as the realistic view of where we stand in terms of this department's small but mighty operations. So if you can prepare that before the February meeting, that would be very helpful. Any?
I'd just like to make a quick statement that I would strongly oppose any use of fines and fees as a source of revenue for this commission. They should be strictly limited to deterring future violations and ensuring compliance. They're not to meet our budget. If our budget needs to be increased, that's up to the Board of Supervisors. That's not. We should be fining people because of their wrongdoing, not to meet our fiscal responsibilities.
Well, that's why we have these programs to make sure that we don't need to fine them.
No, we fine them because people have violated the law. It has nothing to do with our budget. That's my position, at least.
It would open up for public comments, please.
I wanted to just say that these fines, for example, a maximum of $100 for filing months late on a statement of economic interest, that's obviously a gift to the people who are late in filing. It is not in the public interest to have a de minimis. You can't have a library book checked out and overdue at that price. So whoever has come up with those numbers was not taking a serious look at the deterrent effect of setting a fine at a reasonable rate.
But I do think that the existence of this commission is to, through our different activities, is to deter people from missing the deadlines, filing wrong reports. But I think that if it is, if we're given the authority to charge people for missing deadlines and what have you, I am open to looking at increasing those penalties. But I don't think we should be expanding our authority to penalize people. But if the current rule states that if you're missing 700, you're charged, I don't know, $10 a day. It was really low, right? Yes.
$10 a day to a maximum of $100.
Commissioner, Deputy City Attorney Brad Rusty, the penalty amount for the late filing is set by state law. So it's in the government code. The legislature set that.
Okay. Thank you very much
It's
for the
set by
clarification.
state law, but the state says that local governments have the authority to alter that if they choose. It's
But
not a cap. that can't
Regardless,
be
I don't, if I may, regardless, I don't, my point is that this is not an appropriate conversation for our budget. It's an appropriate conversation for enforcement, and that might be taken out at a later date.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Whether it's an appropriate deterrent is a separate conversation. It should not at all drive our budget conversation. And I agree with Commissioner Romano for that. So thank you for raising that issue.
Chair, if I can add a comment.
And also, I just want to remind the folks that at our regular reports, the staff does provide for part of the budget the expected revenue and the actual revenue. And there are times when they're really huge different. I forgot what it was. Sometimes it was like you expected 20,000, but we only get 1,000, which is great, which means everybody complies. So we do have that budget. We do have that part of we shouldn't call it revenue, but it was at penalties and registration fees and everything else. That is part of our revenue budget that we receive every year. Director?
Chair, if I can clarify, the revenue we collect from fees and fines, they do not go towards our operating budget. Just wanted to clarify that. So that doesn't happen currently.
Good.
Okay?
Can I follow up a question on the prior conversation? The chair mentioned a budget statement. I just want to get clarity on that. I assume the budget request is a budget statement. So are you envisioning something separate where the commissioners write a letter saying, Mayor, increase the budget? I wasn't clear what you were referring to.
I think we started to issue budget statements a couple of years ago to explain why, number one, we did not submit a budget per the mayor's request for automatic 3% reduction. And then we will go into why it was necessary for us to submit this. And another purpose of this budget statement was for us to present it to the public to explain why we are proceeding this way. I think it started off with Nauru's matter, and we've been doing that every year just to let the public as well as the leaders know that we are not complying, but there's a reason why we cannot comply with the automatic cut. That's why. It was from the commission,
Right.
not
That makes sense. I assume that's happening anyways, right? Isn't that part of your conversation with the mayor's office in response to the budget request?
So typically, when we submit a budget request, if the mayor's office requests a cut, they will be expecting all departments to enter that into the system. So this time, again, we will need to reflect that in the system. But what we have been doing over the years is that we provide a detailed memo outlining all of our asks with justifications. And Shirley, I think what you're talking about is that in addition to that memo, if the commission issues a statement, we attach that as well as a part of our submission.
So is that what the chair means? A separate statement from the commissioners on top of whatever staff prepares?
right. It's from the body to support the staff's submission.
Got it. Okay.
Moderator?
And we sometimes spell out in a little more detail. For example, in the proposal that we're looking at, we're talking about a percentage cut in enforcement. But if you were then to translate, what does that really mean? It means that you wouldn't enforce cases that are more than 3 years old, or you wouldn't enforce cases that carry a potential fine of $100,000, but not if it's more than that. I mean, you'd want to spell it out so that the public really was informed about what this all meant.
Okay, thank you. Moderator, can you please check?
Madam Chair, we are checking to see if there are callers in the queue who wish to comment on item number 3. Please stand by. Madam Chair, we have one caller in the queue. Please stand by. Welcome, caller. Your 3 minutes begins now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Before you start my time, I just want to say it's difficult, very difficult to hear Chair Lee. If she could please speak as close to the mic as possible, that would be great. Everyone else I can hear pretty well, but I'm having great difficulty hearing Chair Lee. So starting my time now.
Hold on, sir. Hold on. Just hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Your time begins now.
Great. David Pilfell. While the recent Board of Supervisors resolution on audits is important, it only highlights the backlog. There are several ways that backlog can be addressed. In my opinion, adding permanent staff is not the best way. An 1822 or an 1823 could be moved from enforcement to audits or made flexible based on the needs at the time. Besides audits, I have concerns about the website, accessibility, translation, staff, and some other issues. Overall, it would be great to list separately the operating budget from the election campaign fund. If that's already being done, fine. It wasn't clear from the presentation slide on that. The funding and staffing for each program seem about right to me. I think the real issue is about priorities, and I liked the comment that you should have a separate discussion sometime about enforcement priorities and things like that. It's probably time to do that again. I think all programs should emphasize education and compliance. with enforcement as the last resort. On the website, some elements there should be more intuitive with fewer clicks, with a combination of more static and more dynamic content. While accessible overall, I think only key documents should be translated into multiple languages, like how to file a complaint, things like that, but certainly not all documents. And all documents on the website, I think, should be posted as a PDF. There are some documents now that are only in HTML. It's very difficult to pull those or print them as a PDF. It's just a pain. Further on staffing, I understand that a longtime staff person recently separated from the commission staff as his position ended. I think that was avoidable, and going forward, I think it would be great to retain longtime staff that know the commission and how it works. I would try to address the issue of a commission secretary and general administrative support. Again, there are various ways to do that. I'm not sure that a full-time commission secretary makes sense, but probably clustered with other work to support the commission and the staff. Finally, returning to in-person meetings will bring back old challenges and create some new ones too. I happen to like hybrid meetings. I think that's allowed for greater public participation. And just to end, I can follow up with staff regarding further details on my comments today. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Please stand by. Madam Chair, there's no further callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Public comment for agenda item number 3 is now closed. We now go to agenda item number 4, which is additional opportunities for public comment on matters not appearing on the agenda. Moderator, can you please check?
Oh, I am so sorry. I'm over here just talking to myself. I am muted. Excuse me. I have to apologize. We are checking to see if there are callers in the queue, members of the public who are already online and who wish to provide public comment under item number 4 on matters not appearing on the agenda should now dial *3 or raise their hand in WebEx if you have not already done so to be added to the public comment line. Please stand by. Madam Chair, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Public comment is closed. Now is agenda item number 5, which is adjournment. Thank you very much, and we will continue this discussion at the February 10th commission meeting.
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.